ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from an undisclosed secret location in the heart of England. It's That Comic Book Show with your host, GhostCritic.
And everyone and their mother seems to be getting involved. He is the godfather of our YouTube comic book community. If you're going to read any story about this character, this is the one that you should read. They've got the light coming underneath to accentuate the spookish nature of the issue. And I was hooked from the very first page. Good evening, I'm your host, GhostCritic, with last week's news. So, all this week, Marvel have been teasing us with their new team, The Mighty. Yes, it's another superhero team with a ragtag mob of strange characters that they've put together. Some rather... Well, one is definitely unknown to me, one is quite an obscure one, and the rest of them seem to be a bit powerhousey. We've got Luke Cage, we've got Superior Spider-Man, we've got Doc Ock on a team, She-Hulk, and then we've got the Blue Marvel, I don't know who he is, Power Man, and the White Tiger. Two characters I'm not particularly familiar with. What do we think of this new team that is meant to kind of look after Earth while the Avengers, the real Avengers, are out in space saving the planet? Which I thought was the Guardians of the Galaxy's job at the moment. And talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, movie news for this upcoming film has just been going into overdrive, and everyone and their mother seems to be getting involved in this film. The latest rumours or maybes or definitelys that have got a role in this now are Benicio del Toro, which, you know, I can probably see him in a comic book movie. He was in Sin City as Jackie Boy. Doctor Who's Ginger Bit of Crumpet. Yes, Karen Gillan has apparently got a part in the film as one of the villains. And then we've got Glenn Close. Now, has she been in many movies lately? The last one I can remember was probably 101 Dalmatians, the live action. A strange choice, and it just kind of makes me remember Sharon Stone in Catwoman. Ugh, let's not go any further with that. One more movie news, which a little bit trepidation here. It's the Fables movie. Now, there's not a lot of information out there at the moment, though the producer of all the 8 Harry Potter movies is involved. This was rumoured that it was going to be a TV programme for quite some time, and I thought it might lend itself more to that, but now you've got, like, I think it's Once Upon a Time and that kind of grim TV series that kind of play on what Fables is doing in the comic book. Whether this will work as a movie, as much as I'd like to see it, not too sure. Finally, for comic news, Newsarama has a 3-page preview of the next Scott Snyder Bat event, and that is, of course, 0 Year, which is going to span for a whole year. So expect slow-moving storylines. Despite, you know, it is Scott Snyder, so we would hope for something good and something hitting us hard with every issue. He really hasn't failed us on the Bat event so far, but retelling of Batman's origin story yet again. Anyway, I'm GhostCritic, and that was last week's news. Just as a side point, can I lose the suit to tell the news? for this week's In Bed with Ghost Critic. You can tell it's a spooky affair because I've got the light coming underneath to accentuate the spookish nature of the comic I picked from my bedside stack. I'm going back to 1972, a Charlton series that was obviously a little bit spooky. It is All New Ghost Manor. Now, apart from the fact that this cover is just wonderful, I love this kind of the big red circle in the background with the demon, devilish character in front of it, and then some weird, gloopy monster gunker below. Inside, it's very much like reading a kind of Twilight Zone anthology. The books kind of tended to run the same way. You'd have 3 separate stories differing pretty much along the way. So your first story would be like your traditional monster tale. So in this one we have tales of vampires and a little bit of a love story in there as well. The second one, we have a kind of supernatural technology storyline where we have a camera that can predict and show the future, and what you think would be quite a good tool to have has our photographer coming a cropper. And then finally, the last story, we have the mad scientist who wants to create life and makes a deal with someone maybe he shouldn't have. It's just a great kind of spooky ghost stories, late at night, bump in the night tale. It's got some nice Steve Ditko work in there on art. He even throws in a little cameo from E-Man, despite not actually having said a word in it, but he is there if the keen-eyed among you can spot him. I just really I've got quite a lot of these Ghost Manors and that kind of ilk from Charlton, and they are really good reads for the time that they came out. Don't expect to have your socks shaken off in fright, but still they're nice kind of tame spooky tales to send you to the land of nightmares. Hello folks, it's shout out time, and while I would normally like to shout out maybe newer members of the community, those who I think don't get as much attention as I think they deserve, and which is why I like to push those channels and certain videos onto you, I think it's good to recognise and give a huge shout out to some of our longer term members of our great community here on YouTube. And you don't get much bigger, much greater than this guy behind me. It is Hans, Captain Strangelife, the captain of our ship. He is the godfather of our YouTube comic book community. The guy lives in a pop culture museum. He has everything, and he is always informative, he's entertaining, he amazes me with just like his breadth of knowledge. I mean, we see a lot of his videos where he shows a lot of old stuff off and stuff we're just like drooling at the mouth over, but he does collect the good modern stuff as well. I like to think I was the one who pushed him into getting The Unwritten, which I hope he's still reading and still enjoying. But There's no fakeness about Hans. He is a true, genuine member. He's got no agenda. He just wants to show off his love and passion. And it's not just for the comics. So many times he's just turned up with like a box of straws. But they're from like the 50s. He has got such an appreciation for the past and wanting to hold on to these material memories from not only his youth but a lot of youths in our community. He's just an all-round great guy, and I can't believe if you're watching my channel you're not already subscribed to this guy. But if you're not, do it now. Stop my video, click on that link below and subscribe immediately. Go back to a lot of his earlier videos and watch his little tours around that basement of his, and just your mouth will be wide open at the enormity of his collection. I don't think a day goes by that his postman probably hasn't brought him a package with some other comic book goodness for him to make us all jealous over. So Hans, I salute you, Captain, my captain. Long may you reign. That'll do. Now it's time for the reviews, the comic book reviews, and what a surprising week of comics it has been. I was genuinely surprised at a couple of issues. Firstly, a title that when I picked this up I was thinking, I think I may be about to drop this title. I've got enough of him in other books that I don't need to worry so much about this. It's Detective Comics issue 21, but by the end of it I was kind of, oh no, I don't want to stop now, I think. Anyway, we revisit that issue 0. Remember Bruce being kind of mentored and trained up in the Himalayas or somewhere like that, and he falls in love with a girl called Mio, who isn't all she seemed, and killed his mentor and attempted to kill Bruce, but it all went a bit wrong and it looked like Mio was dead. She wasn't. She has been training hard and become a super assassin at the beck of a shadowy mystery figure to begin with. So we jump to the now, and she is attempting to assassinate a dignitary, and it is up to Batman and maybe Harper to stop her. Harper is definitely kind of being written as if she is going to become the next Robin. I don't honestly think she is, but Batman is certainly warming a little more to her. She is in her own way, kind of reckless way, helping him out a little. And so it came really to that very last panel that may have changed my mind about, you know, holding on a little bit longer with this comic. It does appear to be a nemesis of kinds of Batman. Once an enemy, once an ally, back to an enemy. They both have deep respect for each other. Am I right in thinking who it is? I don't want to say anything, but I think we both know. We both know. It's got to be him. Anyway, quite surprised. Oh, and I don't mean to do that. Issue 21, Swamp Thing. I feel sorry for Charles Soule. And I don't want to make that sound bad either. It must be so difficult and it must have been so difficult for any writer to come on to not only a title that was written by Scott Snyder so well, but then to come right after a huge big event like the Rock World. Whether you liked it or hated it, whether you thought it went on too long and was just frivolous nonsense that didn't affect anything, it was still a huge event, and then Scott Snyder went. And Charles Soule had to not really pick up the pieces, but he had to take what Scott Snyder had done, move it forward, but give it his own voice too. And that's why these last two issues have felt a little bit subdued. And it's not because they've even been that bad either. We have this new threat, this this villain called the Cedar, who's upsetting the Green in all sorts of ways. And you have this character, this woman who is calling out for Swamp Thing's help and asking for sanctuary, something that Swamp Thing doesn't understand what she's asking for. And so we get this rather nice double-page spread of the history of another previous Swamp Thing and what this Swamp Thing sanctuary is all about. So while, like I said, it all feels a little less subdued and it appears to be missing something, it's still a well-told story. I think it's just the impact of Scott Snyder and the last event kind of harms it in a little way. I'm still enjoying it. I just think we need to forget that Scott Snyder was ever on this, if you get what I mean. Biggest surprise this week: Green Lantern issue 21. Now, I hate the term jumping on point because you can jump on any comic at any time, and if you like what you read, then go pick up what came before it. Buy some more comics, read some more history of the character. But this is certainly Robert Venditti doing his best to bring in a new reader. Jeff Johns, after his huge run pre and post 52, Robert Venditti is attempting to put his stamp on Green Lantern, and he does really well, kicking off with this first issue that he's taken on. And if you're a new reader, or if you've kind of a lapsed reader, it pretty much gives you a lot of information and what Green Lantern's world is all about. We have Hal and his love life with Carol Ferris. We find out that Hal is now in charge of the Green Lantern Corps. We have the old Guardians deciding to, pop off and find themselves and then come back and take back over, no doubt. And there's plenty of action there. We have a mysterious fight against a mysterious villain that's just a little bit in the future, which is so we can come back and find out what's happening. The reader can find out how a Green Lantern is picked. And there's a lot of kind of humour in there as well. Probably making the worst decision, but for the best intentions. We have a Green Lantern Corps that's vastly diminished. We have the planet OA decimated and needed rebuilding, but there's no one there to actually rebuild it. So off go the rings to find some worthy ring bearers. Which is my only little quibble with this. The rings, they're sent out to find people who are, really worthy, who have this, the power of will. And the rings that go out and pick a few people and they come back to help out, they don't really look like the right calibre of Green Lanterns. I don't know. Laughley's also makes an appearance. He's all want, and OA is up for the picking in its current state. Billy Tan's artwork is a little bit hit and miss with me. Sometimes it looks really good, sometimes it looks a bit scratchy. A little bit more, I don't know, inking on this may have fleshed it out a bit. The colours are a bit washed out, though it's still, you know, obviously you've got all these rings and their colours. It's all still a brilliant palette of colours. If you want Green Lantern something new, then pick this up. If you've been a bit disheartened like I have with Jeff Johns' last, like, 20 issues of Green Lantern, then this is a refreshing change. So on to that big number one that everyone has been looking forward to this week. It's had a long hiatus, but is a very much loved title. Now, if you'd seen me on Twitter last night, I was kind of a bit apprehensive about this title, purely because I've only ever really dipped into this series and don't know like the whole picture, or I don't appreciate it as probably as much as a lot of the more die-hard fans. So reading the first issue, I wasn't as blown away as maybe, you know, the people who have read more of it may well be at this. It is, of course, Astro City, Kurt Busiek's much loved, maybe kind of underlooked title, now on the Vertigo line. Well, we have a mystery door hanging over the sea. No one can open it. We've got superheroes trying to break into it. Superheroes that maybe not as true as we'd like them to be, maybe being manipulated by a larger force. And then, of course, we've, from what the bits I have read of Astro City, the nice thing is we have this human element. We have the big heroics, but Kurt brings in the human element so well, and we have this gentleman who ends up taking on a huge responsibility, but his life has been kind of coasting for so long. He needs some new challenge, so why not do the biggest challenge ever and take on a godlike figure and show him what it's like to basically be human, to live on Earth. The artwork is very nice. It has that kind of golden agey feel to it, but with a modern surface. What I didn't like at first was the first character. Oh, what was he called again? The Broken Man. This guy here, I hope you can see that. I'm not keen when comic book characters break that fourth wall and talk directly to us. It works sometimes, and at first I thought he may have been talking to someone within the comic, but as you go, you know he's talking to the reader, and I didn't particularly like that. But then right at the end, when he's telling you don't turn that last page or you're gonna ruin everything, there's a big twist to this character and opens up so many more storylines and what may actually be happening. I enjoyed it. It wasn't that it was a bad comic at all. I just think I may have appreciated it more if I'd read a lot more of the previous series. Definitely pick it up. Definitely enjoy it. I don't particularly think you need to know a great deal of the history behind it. You could just jump on here. East of West, issue 3, and who'd have guessed it, I'm enjoying a Hickman penned title comic book. I do have a problem with Hickman at times, especially with his independent work, where he has all these huge ideas and never seems to take the time to truly flesh them out and explain them and help the reader understand. Here, I'm loving it all. The science fiction, the post-apocalyptic world, the westerns, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm loving the kind of setting here. There is so much in here, and we touch base on all our main characters, so we find out more about the wife of our kind of ghostly white cowboy. We get a little bit snippet of the 3 evil kids on the trail of our cowboy, and of course we have this oncoming battle between a huge army of men bred and trained purely for the purpose of battle against our 3 kind of travellers. Again, I said this when I first reviewed the very first issue. It has this kind of Kill Bill, Tarantino-esque vibe to it, which is just great. I love it. But for me, the best part is Dragotto's, is that how you pronounce it? Yes. Dragotto's artwork on here. It's really, really nice. I don't know what it is about it though, but there's just something about it. He's got, you know, like in Saga when they have all these great ideas and you see these weird and wonderful creatures. Dragotto and Hickman have that kind of same symbiosis where Hickman has this idea and Dragotto just knows how to draw it. It's certainly definitely a different style to what Fiona Staple does on Saga, but the imagination behind it is no less exciting or enthralling. Really, really on board with this title and the mystery behind it all. I'm willing to wait to get the answers. So finally, and definitely my pick of the week. I love this title, and I didn't get to talk to you about the first issue, and I was hooked from the very first page. 10 grand, the comic book you should be picking up if you aren't already. Especially for those of you who are missing their Hellblazer fix, because it certainly has that John Constantine supernatural demon vibe, because it's full of it. Flesh-eating demons, you've got cults, you've got fiery angels, you've got spells, and people be able. That's how excited I am about this, but I can't get my words out. People being able to see without sight. That's what I was trying to say. I'm very excited about this book. I love it. Ben Templesmith's artwork in here is phenomenal. I love Ben Templesmith's art anyway, but there is just something about his use of colour and lines. When you first look at it, you kind of think, well, it's a little bit scrappy. Everybody doesn't look, not proportioned, but slightly skewed, but it just works so damn well. The storyline we have our kind of John Constantine-like character he's got a new job, trying to find the sister of this girl who's come looking for his help and paying 10 grand. And just the moments where he finally meets up with his dead wife in this kind of, is it heaven, is it limbo? Could it even be hell? We don't know. And the twist at the end, which just makes you question it even more. The whole thing is just perfect. It's a shame this one didn't have an audio file, because that was a nice little extra in the first issue. Having the kind of storyline spoken, it was nice. I like that, and it's a shame couldn't have that for every issue as a nice little surprise extra. But you know what, Straczynski and Temple Smith are doing a phenomenal job on this. Please go find it and pick it out. They're the reviews. Now on to another of the Ultimate Graphic Novel Collection from Marvel. A bit of a review for you here. For those who are collecting these in the UK or in Europe, wherever else you can get it in, you may notice that I'm not actually doing these now in order of when they came out. Purely because a lot of them seem to be getting put in like 2 parts, so I'll wait till I get both parts and do just a big review of them, which is why this episode has me, it's the very first issue, the very first volume of this series, and it was a story that I was really looking forward to reading because I hadn't read it before. And apparently I'd read that this, if you're going to read any story about this character, this is the one that you should read. It is basically the quintessential Iron Man story. Now, I'm not a big buff on Iron Man. I don't know a lot about him. I'm not a keen reader of the character. But it is, of course, from 1979, Iron Man Demon in a Bottle, which deals with Tony Stark's alcoholism. Now, it was 1979, so reading this, it does seem a little tame, to be fair. It was seen as, you know, dealing with a real big problem, and was seen as this great push forward for real stories and characters in real life situations. But yes, it's 1979, it's a comic book aimed at children, young adults, sorry, and it just, like I said, it's a little bit on the tame side. Plus, I mean, we're going from issue 120 to 128. There is a lot of other things going on in here, and it's a hodgepodge, mishmash of many different kind of storylines all going on at once, with the overriding and the climax issue being about Tony's drink problem. So yes, there are a lot of villains thrown in this storyline, so of course there's lots of fighting. You have Iron Man's suit malfunctioning constantly and him not realising, and because of this, you know, he stops mid-air and falls into the sea and rescued by Namor. He accidentally kills like a politician ambassador, which is quite amusing because it's obviously in front of hundreds of people, and yet the police just let him go because he's Iron Man and just accept his excuse that, oh, my suit's malfunctioning, it's not my fault. Just because he's Iron Man and they think they can't take him down. Oh, off you go. You go and find out what's wrong with your suit of armour. So what we do actually find is that, and again it's another subplot running through, is that it's Hammer. They found a way to override Iron Man's suit, and obviously want to use him for nefarious means. What else is going on? He steps down as the Avengers team leader because that's who he was at the time, and you get a few superhero, like I said, Namor's in there. Captain America teaches him to fight without the use of his suit, and like I said, as the issues go on and on, you see him drinking more heavily, until the climax of the story. It's a bit like watching an episode of Mad Men. Every time Tony Stark is in the office, he's there pouring himself a tumbler of brandy or whiskey or a cocktail martini. And it isn't, like I said, until the last issue where Beth, his kind of the almost love interest for Tony in this, she gives him a bit of tough love, and she herself has had a sob story to tell him to shake Tony Stark out of it and hopefully help him mend his ways. Apparently the director of Iron Man 3 wanted to use this as a basis for the film, but you know, Disney, no, the kids, they may get affected. We can't mention alcoholism in one of our movies. Anyway, that's by the by. In the back, as usual, there's a load of extras, so you get Iron Man's origin story. So for those, much like myself, who don't know much about him, bar maybe the films, get a little bit more. We have a little bit more of the writer and his dealing and his participation in this storyline. And then we have our further reading. Nothing new on there to tell us what's coming. All the books that they send there we've already looked at. I gotta say, I was a little bit disappointed with this. It is that kind of, obviously the kind of Bronze Agey feel to it, but I was hoping for something better.